Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled to dive into this one with you today. We're going to look at something that honestly feels a bit like science fiction, but it's actually this incredibly fascinating, visionary conceptual framework for the future of how we communicate. We are talking about QELC, the Quantum Emoji Language Collaboration Engine. Basically, it's this emerging proposal that completely reimagines those little icons on your phone, suggesting that they could eventually redefine human-computer interaction and become a fully modular symbolic communication system.
And that brings us to the central question anchoring our entire journey today. What actually happens when emojis stop being just, simple icons, like those cute little decorations we tack onto a text message when we want pizza, or that crying laughing face we send when we literally just don't know what else to say? What if they become actual components of a living, structured language? We're going to trace this conceptual language development pipeline together, exploring how communication could evolve from raw, basic decoration all the way up to a unified global system of meaning.
Now, to wrap our heads around this massive leap, we really need to ground ourselves with three core questions. Number one, what does a symbol actually mean? Number two, how does its context change that meaning? And number three, how can multiple symbols interact to become a formal system? I want you to just keep these in the back of your mind, all right? Because we're going to keep returning to them as the complexity scales up from pure intuitive expression toward highly formal systems of logic and syntax.
So, here's our agenda for today. First up, the evolution of emojis. Then, from instinct to syntax. After that, emotion, logic, and narrative. Then we'll hit multi-layered and quantum reasoning. 5, entering the master field. And finally, Section 6, the future of communication. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The evolution of emojis.
So, the QELCE framework kicks off at what it calls Mode 0, or emoji fluid. I want you to picture this visually, okay? Imagine just floating in a dark, organic space. There are zero rules here. This is pure, completely unstructured emoji flow. It represents our primordial communication, driven entirely by raw expression, immediate impressions, and just intuitive associations. It's totally vibe-based, meaning without any formal linguistic constraints whatsoever.
But, to actually build a usable system, you've got to transition from that unstructured flow to some concrete foundations. So in Mode 1, which is the literal mode or representation, we get strict one-to-one meaning. An apple emoji simply means an apple. It acts as our basic semantic unit. Then we level up to Mode 2, where we start combining these symbols into a larger vocabulary. Suddenly, a person walking, an arrow, and a convenience store all combine to express one specific concept, going to the store.
Moving on to Section 2, from instinct to syntax. Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is that a symbolic language requires structure. And that brings us right to Mode 3, syntax. This is where structured grammar actually emerges. The order of the symbols fundamentally dictates the meaning. You establish a subject, followed by an action, and then an object. This is the exact moment the framework stops just naming things and starts organizing them. It allows users to express complex, specific thoughts that other people can actually reliably decode.
Section 3. Emotion, logic, and narrative.
Now we're stepping way past literal physical objects and entering this wild realm where symbols encode subjective meaning. Welcome to Mode 4, emotional semantics. Here, a symbol doesn't just represent an object anymore. A wave represents emotion. A fire represents intensity. The exact same string of symbols can change its meaning based purely on the emotional charge or even the combination of surrounding icons. It literally encodes intention and subjective feeling right into the syntax itself.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it naturally evolves into Mode 5, logic. We are literally now using emojis for reasoning. By combining, say, a question mark, an investigative magnifying glass, and the light bulb of realization, the framework proposes that symbolic structures can actually represent logical relationships, operators, and if-then patterns. It's the expression of cause and effect through pure symbolic logic.
And of course, logic naturally flows right into narrative over time, which brings us to Mode 6. In story mode, symbols form these sequences representing events, agents, and transformations. You aren't just making an isolated statement anymore, you are creating timelines. You're showing a starting state, an action that transforms it, and then an outcome, essentially building cause and effect relationships into a cohesive story.
Section 4. Multi-layered and quantum reasoning.
All right, we are now entering modes 7 through 10. These are the absolute highest levels of abstraction, advanced and multi-layered reasoning. Now, I want to be super clear about something here. When the framework eventually uses the word quantum, it is a brilliant computational metaphor. It is not literal physics. At these advanced levels, we start seeing things like high-density compression, where just a brain and a lightning bolt convey a huge concept like a sudden realization. We also see archetypal layers using universal mythic symbols, like a snake for transformation, which allows the language to tap into deep, culturally rich meaning with profound efficiency.
And all of this culminates in the quantum level. This is the conceptual idea that a single symbolic sequence can support multiple simultaneous interpretations or truth states depending on the observer or the specific context. So a single string can hold a literal meaning, an emotional intent, and an archetypal symbolism, all overlapping and all true at the exact same time depending on your interpretive frame. It's almost like a giant semantic puzzle.
Which brings us to Section 5, entering the master field.
Here we are at Mode 11, the master field. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the master field is not simply more symbols. No, it is the ultimate integration layer. It's a unified, global symbolic system capable of dynamic combination. It synthesizes all the previous modes simultaneously. A user could fluidly shift from logical reasoning right into emotional resonance to a direct literal statement, all without ever breaking the flow. It's that pinnacle state where the language stops being modular and just operates as a completely seamless, interactive whole.
And finally, Section 6, the future of communication.
So we have to ask ourselves, why does a conceptual framework like this actually matter? What happens if we treat this living, symbolic laboratory as a blueprint for the future? Well, the potential value here is massive. A system like QLC could unlock high-density communication, allowing us to transmit really complex ideas way faster than typing out paragraphs. It offers an entirely new way for visual knowledge representation, which could completely revolutionize educational tools. It could serve as this powerful bridge for human-AI collaboration, giving us a shared symbolic space with machines. And honestly, it opens huge doors for multilingual interfaces, collaborative problem-solving, and entirely new forms of creative storytelling.
But let's be real, there are some major challenges to turning a concept like this into reality. For instance, how do you handle ambiguity and subjective interpretation when everyone sees a symbol just a little bit differently? How do you account for deep cultural differences in what a specific archetype means? There's also the immense challenge of computational representation, semantic grounding, and maybe most importantly, learnability. Because how do you prevent such an advanced, multi-layered symbolic system from becoming so convoluted and complex that no one can actually use it?
These are definitely hurdles we'll have to overcome, but they really shouldn't overshadow the awe-inspiring scope of this idea. As the source material beautifully summarizes, perhaps the future of communication is not about replacing words with emojis. Perhaps it is about discovering a richer symbolic layer in which images, language, logic, emotion, context, and computation can interact. So it's really about integration, not replacement.
We've seen how communication might evolve from just a basic vibe all the way to a highly structured master field of interaction. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. If a single symbol can carry many meanings, and a dynamic system can actually teach those symbols to reason, what will we say next? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating conceptual framework with me today.